Welcome to the OP Overwatch podcast, a podcast focused on Overwatch strategy, tactics, characters, and general discussion. I'm your host, Jam, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jeff. How are you, Jeff?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So we're kicking off a few days after launch day for Overwatch. Really exciting times. I've got to say, compared to the beta, there's definitely been a bunch of changes, and it's been very exciting trying out a lot of the characters and getting a little more familiar with the maps. It's been a very, very fun time.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Launch has been smooth. It seems like the player skill of the community is improving, and so, yeah.
Well, let's first start up with some quick updates with our podcast. If you want to share some of the social media, our Facebook page, we're on iTunes now as well. You mind giving the details on that?
Oh, yeah, sure. The new Facebook page is up and running. We are now available on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. So please subscribe to us there, and we appreciate some reviews and feedback as well. And we're also starting to put up some highlight videos on YouTube, as well as on the videos page of our website, oppodcast.com.
Awesome. Yep, that's a very, very exciting with Overwatch just coming out, and there's just so much hype surrounding this game. With the first few days of us playing, we're going to get into some in-depth character discussion in just a moment here, but obviously we can't just ignore launch and everything that's been going on. So let's start out with your launch experience. As far as the game being released and obviously everybody being so into this franchise, what are some notable moments that you've been really having with the game? Are there any specific characters you've been kind of connecting with? Are there any maps that you've been enjoying? What are some of your experiences with the game?
Well, yeah, it's been pretty awesome so far. I've definitely gravitated towards a few new characters that I didn't play as much in the beta, namely Widowmaker, Junkrat a good bit, but also a couple that we're going to talk about here that I was fond of in beta and even more fond of now. So yeah, it's been fun to finally get in and not feel like you only have a few more days before they take it away from you. So yeah, it's been fantastic. I've enjoyed a lot of team play, a lot of coordination that has definitely been the way to go. It's definitely leading to a higher win percentage. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. It's pretty interesting that when we're limited on time with the beta, you're like, oh, I need to really spend time with a certain character or a certain few characters. But now the game's out. It's been it's just out and we can play it as much as we want. So it's interesting. We can really spend a lot of our time kind of focusing on those characters that maybe initially we weren't as interested in. And for me, it's been the same thing. I'm actually, when I mentioned last episode, I was really, really connecting with the tank characters and some of the more defensive. But now I actually put a little more time into some of the offensive characters, which we're going to talk about this episode. And it has been absolutely ridiculous, just some of the matches I've had. It's and even in the community, you go on and you're facing a large spectrum of skill levels, everything from people who are just jumping into the game for the first time, not knowing anything about the characters, to people who played the beta hardcore and have been looking up videos, strategies, and they come into the match and you can tell right off the bat they are 100% serious and it's game time. So yeah, it's very exciting to kind of see the community and the skill level really grow, while at the same time the game itself keeps its entertainment and its enjoyability throughout the entire experience.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the game is definitely still extremely fun. Even in losses, there are parts of it where you made a good play or you just enjoy a character. So you can take something from it either way. I will say that in the beta, there was virtually no communication on teams, which is obviously a negative if you're trying to play a game where they encourage team play. But at the same time, now that there's communication, I'm noticing a lot more often, not all the time, but more often, there's definitely some people out there that I wish wouldn't communicate. So just something you have to deal with online games, but it's something I had hoped there wouldn't be as much of because of the lack of a traditional scoreboard and the kill-death ratio that we talked about in our first episode. And it's definitely better than most, but, there's always a few.
Well, we've definitely discussed off air plenty of times. There's definitely an aspect of the gaming community where, you have your people that are more positive, and it's all about having fun with the game, and regardless of what's happening in the match, it's going to be, it's going to be a positive, good experience. And if you lose, you're going to learn from it. If you win, it's awesome. But there's always going to be that other side, I think, in any game. It's definitely not specific to Overwatch, where when you're playing online, you're just going to come across the haters. You're going to come across people that just can't handle it too well when they don't lose, when they don't win, and they can't just figure out how to get around a match. So yeah, I think that's something we're probably going to just have to live with.
Don't let your 10-year-olds play video games online, people.
No, do not do that. And if you do, supervise them. All right, well, let's actually get into the more in-depth character breakdowns. We're going to start off with the offensive class of characters. And the first character we're going to start off with is Tracer.
The world could always use more heroes.
So Tracer is a character that is obviously Blizzard's favorite. She's the face of the game, arguably next to maybe Winston, Widowmaker, and Reaper as well. And she is definitely in the community a favorite as well. But the interesting thing about Tracer, at least to me, is that she has, I would argue, compared to all the other 20 characters, probably one of the highest skill ceilings of any character in the game. It is just ridiculous, the possibilities with this character, and I'm very excited to see where this character ends up a few months or even a year or two down the road when people have gotten really, really good with her. But right off the bat, and I know you had mentioned before in the beta, you had very, very good experiences with her, right?
Yeah, she's been my favorite character from day one, which is certainly not unique. I think a lot of people feel that way, but I was pretty determined to put the time in to really get accustomed to the mobility. I think that she's a unique character in that she's all over the place, so much so that you have to take the time to figure it out before you can even start trying to aim at other people. Not blinking off cliffs is step one. So you got to put the time in. She's not the sort of character you're going to figure out in 2 or 3 matches. But I'm a huge fan of hers, and I mean, her strengths are amazing if you can cover up her weaknesses.
Yes, and her weaknesses are extremely apparent if you cannot utilize her strengths. She can die so quickly. I'll just start off with some of her weaknesses, because it's, if you're jumping in and you're not playing, if you haven't played with Tracer a whole lot, it's very, very easy to die. She has a very low HP level. It's only 150. And I mean, in this game with characters like, some of our tanks, Winston, Roadhog, especially Roadhog, who can do massive damage in a short amount of time. Tracer is flimsy. She can go down so easily. However, that is completely balanced by her mobility and just her strategy with her abilities. I mean, she is just a ridiculous character that you can absolutely, trump most characters in the game, depending on how you play her. So what are some of the good experiences you've had with her?
Well, I mean, I think playing maps where there's a little bit more length to the map, it's been pretty beneficial to roll Tracer, just because she can get behind enemy lines. They have no idea where you are. She's really strong against a number of characters, but especially the sniper characters, namely Widowmaker and Hanzo, just because she can get behind them with a triple blink, and they never had a chance to watch you or to catch you. So yeah, I mean, the best part about Tracer is your ability to get behind their line, to really disrupt. Even if you can't full out kill all these characters that are behind the line, the fact that you can make them turn around and chase you or pay attention to you is incredibly beneficial to your whole team, which, aside from just the kills or the objective time, I mean, that's if you can make them chase you, that's something that's not going to show up on the scoreboard, but you're doing a lot to help your team win.
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, it's one of those things where Tracer, when you're playing her, I feel like at least since some of the changes after the beta, you don't see a whole lot of play of the games with her just because you're not really getting, 3, 4, 5 kills in a short amount of time. You can do pretty good damage with her pulse bomb for sure, but it's definitely nowhere near where it was when the game, was initially released in the beta. However, her other abilities, and in conjunction with her pulse bomb, definitely make up for it. Her pulse pistols shoot so quickly. We had a discussion about this before of how she literally can empty a clip and reload it in a ridiculous amount of time. It's actually one of those things where it almost feels like you're firing an automatic weapon at all times. It's absolutely amazing. And even though it's, with most characters, you have to be close to really do the maximum amount of damage, even as a character that's kind of drawing attention away from maybe, you just want to come in and, like you said, flank with her, pull some of the attention away and really pull one or two of their teammates to kind of chase you. And as we know, chasing Tracer isn't the easiest thing to do. You can use her very strategically as both a defensive and offensive character.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I play her on defense just as much as offense. I mean, she's not the sort of character you want pushing the payload on offense anyway, so she can fulfill that same role on the flank on either side of the match, and it's going to be equally effective for either side because both sides are going to have healers and ranged players that don't want Tracer near them. So yeah, I also agree that her pulse bomb, I actually think it's the weakest ultimate in the game. Certainly close, if not just flat out the weakest. It was pretty strong in the early testing stages before launch, but the radius has been reduced so much. You're lucky to get more than one kill with it, and the one kill is if you can stick it on somebody, which takes some practice. If you just throw it into an area, more often than not, you're not going to get any kills with it because its radius is just pretty pathetic at this point. But even with that aside, her base skill set and mobility make up for it, and so she doesn't need the ultimate that's going to kill 5 or 6 people because she can do her job just as well without it.
Well, her ability to get into a fight, deal damage, and whether you kill someone or not, and I will absolutely agree with you for her pulse bomb. And it's very situational. I'm sure if a group of characters is very close together, you could get multi-kills with it, and I'm sure plenty of people do. But when compared to, say, Junkrat's ultimate, it's almost not even close. Junkrat can get 3 to 4 kills and people basically within shouting distance of each other, whereas Tracer, they would definitely have to be grouped much closer. However, her ability to get in and either kill or just do damage and then get out, and combined with her recall to actually recover her health to, a period where she had full ammo, full health, I feel completely makes up for it. It's just, she's a very fun character. She's quick. She does a lot of damage, and defensively, even though she doesn't have much HP, she can really just get in and out of there as quickly as possible. And on top of that, talking about character pairings, I've been playing Tracer a lot since the game has been released, and I've actually been improving with her. And to me, one of the most fun things with Tracer, and you see it happening a lot in matches just because she's a popular character, is when you're doing a Tracer versus Tracer type match, you start entering this sort of way of thinking when you're playing the game and you're fighting another Tracer where you both are now familiar with the character. You're familiar with their abilities, with the blinks and the recalls, and now you're both using them on each other. So now, on top of you having to plan your recall, plan your blinks, keep an eye on your health, on your ammo, you're also doing the same with your opponent. So if you see your opponent Tracer recall, suddenly you have to think, okay, I've been fighting them for the past 10 seconds. Where were they 3 seconds ago? Let me blink over there. And then the second they reappear, they're like, okay, I have to get out there, blink somewhere else, and you can actually end up having some pretty epic fights with Tracer.
Yeah, I agree. The tracer versus tracer showdowns that happens on on the flanks of the map usually, you get a lot of one-on-ones, and they're pretty fun. And it is a mind game a little bit. I actually think there's some strategy to it in that I think you want to try and let the other tracer run their blinks down, and then as soon as they recall, if you are able to stay alive without using all your blinks, keep one banked. You're always going to have one more than them, and so once they recall, you can actually jump them, and they won't really be able to get away. But it's easier said than done. It's a pretty frantic character to play on its own, and when you factor in that you're facing another tracer, it's a lot to keep track of. I also think that the really fun thing about Tracer for me is the matches where you really get into it and you start getting on a 10, 15 kill streak. Your heart rate goes up a little bit, and I feel like the character plays even faster then. You start to feel like you get into your groove, and you're almost invincible with it. You're sticking pulse bombs to Mercy, and then you're across the map, and then you find the health, and then you're all the way back across attacking their tank. So yeah, I mean, once you really get into the groove and get comfortable with Tracer, I mean, you feel very powerful, more so than a lot of the other characters.
Now, I'm glad you brought up the using all of your blinks, because this is something that I definitely noticed, and it's very, very easy, and it's very attractive to just triple blink at all times. You right click, you get as much distance as you can, you're trying to cover as much area as you can, but once you get in battle and you've done that, and it's very easy to use all three blinks and then immediately enter into a battle, you immediately start regretting, and I know this from experience, going in and not having any blinks for an evasion. So I would definitely say your blink, recall, and ammo management throughout the entire Tracer experience is extremely important. If you move in with a blink, move in with maybe two at the most if you're not sure what's going to happen, because not having that blink for an evasion is a big deal. Once you've used all your blinks and you don't have a recall, you're basically a very low damage dealing character that can't move fast enough to get away from a massive amount of the characters in the game. So moving in, moving out, kind of keeping an eye on your refresh for all of your abilities. The recall is amazing. And also, you had mentioned accidentally blinking off the cliff. I'm not saying I've ever done that multiple times right off the bat in the beta, but that recall is a great way to fix it if you do accidentally do it. So she has a lot of ways of correcting. She has a lot of ways of jumping in, and has a very dynamic play style for both offense and defense, and I just think she's a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, she really is. More than anything, she's extremely fun. I think that she embodies the goal of Overwatch in that way. So I'm actually curious. I know you've been playing a lot of Tracer since the launch, and I've got my own opinions on this. But what are some characters that you find Tracer to be extremely strong against, where you see them on the other team and you're just licking your chops? And then are there also any characters where you'll just change characters off of Tracer because you don't want to go against them?
That's actually a good question. So initially, when I started playing in the beta, I played a lot of tank and defensive characters. I played Mei, I played Zarya, and Winston. So I'm kind of familiar with that play style. So I'm coming in now with a more offensive character like Tracer, especially one that's so mobile. When you go in, it's interesting. I feel, well, I'll start with the people I tend to avoid. I tend to avoid fighting a turreted Bastion because from a distance, you're almost completely ineffective. I mean, you can do damage, but the comparison between the amount of damage that Bastion can do to you versus what you can do to Bastion with Tracer is not even a competition. So if you're gonna fight Bastion, you better have a pulse bomb ready. You better be coming in as a surprise. Right down the middle, right in front of him is the worst thing to do. And I've made the mistake of thinking I could fool him with the blink. If you blink, he's gonna point at you. It's literally a quarter of an inch of a mouse move for him to just lay right back on you and just lay into you. So generally, I avoid any sort of turrets or anybody who can do massive damage in a turret or in a one single spot. However, as I mentioned before, I love fighting Tracer with Tracer, but that's more because of just a mind game thing. I really, really enjoy personally, and this is one of the exciting things about this game is like even though you can play the same character as your buddies, everybody seems to play them a little differently. And for me, I play Tracer as more of a tank killer. I love going in, blinking in, doing some damage, hitting them, kind of pulling the attention of the tank away from some of the other characters on my team, and then blinking away, because most of the tanks, besides some of your exceptions like Winston, can't really close the distance fast enough with Tracer. So I love kind of peppering in, doing that damage, being annoying. You're not going to get a play of the game if you play like that. However, you are going to definitely get their attention. I also like going after other offensive characters, because generally characters like Genji, Pharah, other Tracers, they don't have a large HP pool. So when you move in with Tracer, you can pretty much guarantee after a couple clips, if your aim is good enough and you're keeping your mobility good and you're avoiding their attacks, you can kill them pretty quickly. But attacking a tank is going to take definitely a lot more work. It's going to take more of your time. So it really just depends what your style of play with her is. I generally like going for the tanks just because there's something enjoyable about just going in and taking out a Reinhardt or a Roadhog, knowing how much HP they have and knowing that they couldn't touch you the entire time you were going after them. So that's kind of how I like to go after it. How do you like to play Tracer?
Well, I definitely try and stick almost exclusively to the outsides of the map. I never want to be, standing behind Reinhardt's shield, moving right up Main Street. And so because of that, I actually disagree about Bastion. Maybe it's because Bastion's usually pointed at the Reinhardt, but I have very little trouble getting in behind Bastion. One of the things about Tracer that I figured out after a few days is, she's not very good from range, but you don't have to give away your position as soon as you can. You can take the time to blink in and get around and just be standing right behind them. Like it's funny. It's just like the intro cinematic, the original announcement trailer where they're in the museum and Widowmaker's aiming and then Tracer just shows up over her shoulder. That's pretty much what happens every time. I mean, Widowmaker, Bastion, they're so focused. They never see me coming. So characters like that, Hanzo too, to maybe to a little bit lesser extent, because Hanzo is a little bit better at engaging in medium and short range. But it's characters that are trying to look one way, and I'm trying to come around the side of them. So I also agree about the tanks, specifically Reinhardt. I have been able to give Reinhardt fits because you can just blink through his shield and shoot him in the back, and then he turns around and you do it again. And attacking the tanks, you're not going to get a ton of kills necessarily. I mean, you can if they don't have any help, but it also builds your ultimate really fast, which is the biggest benefit of it. So yeah, I mean that to me is the kind of the list that comes to mind. Characters that I'm excited to play Tracer against. As far as characters that I think Tracer, if they give me trouble as Tracer, number one by a mile is Symmetra. A good Symmetra is gonna be on the flanks as well, more than likely, trying to find a good spot for their teleporter and have lots of turrets around it. And Tracer just doesn't have the health to realize they're being attacked by turrets, find them, and kill them. So Symmetra's a nightmare. I think Mei is a common counter to Tracer, but I actually think that one is a little bit more. I find that to be an even match when I fight Mei's, because Tracer can blink and kind of do some damage while staying out of the frost to a certain extent. I mean, if it's in a group setting, Mei's a nightmare, but one-on-one, I don't have too much trouble with them. Torbjorn gives me nightmares with those freaking turrets. and then I guess another one would probably be Soldier 76, just because he's really balanced. More health than you'd expect, so pretty tough for Tracer to take down before he can get his heal off and force you to back off.
I definitely agree with you on the Mei situation. I honestly think it's really just who gets the jump on the other first, because in a situation where you're not paying attention and Mei gets that, I mean, I think with most characters, if Mei gets on you first, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for you. However, if it's a situation, I had a match recently where I played a Tracer and I was Mei, and it went on a pretty long time. It actually was about a 30 to 40 second fight, which in an FPS is, if you count, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 40, that's a long time to be in a firefight. And between Tracer's ability to blink and recall and Mei's ability to self-heal and also, put up walls and really distract, it turns into a really interesting fight. So, yeah, I agree with you there. And then as far as Reinhardt and a lot of the less mobile characters, especially someone who doesn't have an instantly available long-range attack at all times, yeah, Tracer's just going to be absolutely fantastic about them. I mean, it's all about mobility. It's all about managing your abilities and your health and your ammo. And she is just fantastic at getting in and out of there. Granted, I still believe that regardless of the situation, I mean, these are just our personal experiences. Regardless of the situation, you're going to be able to find a way to beat almost any character with any character. But in general, yeah, I feel like she's definitely good against the characters with lower HP. And as a counter to a tank, it takes a little more work, but it absolutely is possible. As far as the turrets are concerned, yeah, you're gonna have to lean heavily on your teammates. I know a few of those matches where you were having issues with the turrets. I was moving in with Tracer as well, and as long as it's distracted, you can get rid of it pretty quickly. But it's all very situational for sure.
Yeah. I mean, sure, if the turret's shooting at something else, that's fine. But if you're trying to sneak around and you're ahead of your team, the turret finds you every time, even if a player never would. So, yeah, they're more irritating than unbeatable. But, yeah, it still makes me not want to play Tracer. I'd rather just pick somebody, I don't know, like Genji and just deflect it to death. But, given that you played a good amount of Tracer, I mean, do you have anything else to add as far as things that wouldn't be obvious if someone's picking up Tracer for the first time? Some tips or advice to get started.
Well, yeah, I think just to summarize Tracer as a character, if you're kind of interested in playing her and you're kind of not sure what to expect, or you're trying out different characters, I'd say if you're more of a player that's very comfortable with Twitch-type mechanics, very, very quick movement, accurate aiming, and you're very good with mobility, if Tracer plays like no other character in an FPS ever before, so it's definitely a learning curve. However, I think if you're very big into mobility and trick tactics and really just messing with your opponent's head as much as possible, I think that's definitely going to be the character for you. As far as stuff that's not as obvious, it's really going to be utilizing her recall, but knowing how to time it. And it's one of those things where, recall allows her to go backwards in time and to a few seconds before. So, and it's something that you can't do all the time. It has a pretty long refresh time. However, when you're recalling, it's one of those things that you not only go back to the position you were a few seconds ago, but you get your ammo back, you get your life back. Whatever you were at those seconds before, that's what you're back to. It literally is time travel, which is super cool for her character. So one of the things to keep in mind is before just mashing that recall right before you're about to die, really weigh the options of blinking versus recall, because if you've been, say, camping and with Tracer and you're have been sitting in the same spot for about 10, 15 seconds, recall is not going to change your position. It might get you back to the HP and the ammo that you were, but you better be ready to blink out of there. Whereas if you're constantly mobile with Tracer, which I feel is her strong suit, it's her greatest advantage is constantly being mobile, because when you're constantly mobile with Tracer, it means that a few seconds back, we're in a different position, and you're absolutely able to return to that if you have the recall available. Combine that with your blinks and then your occasional pulse bomb and her rapid reload and firing time with her pulse pistols, and I think you have a character that is just super fun to play with, super mobile, and the potential to do a lot of damage in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I agree with you. And recall is a big deal. I mean, not only for the reasons you stated, but something that might not be obvious right off the bat. It's also going to remove most of the debuffs in the game. So, like Zenyatta's Orb of Discord, if you recall, it'll remove that. Or if you get hit with Widowmaker's damage over time mine, it'll remove that damage over time effect as well. So recall is very useful for a lot of other reasons that may not be apparent right away. I mean, beyond that, I think some of the tricks to playing Tracer, it really just comes down to getting comfortable with it, but also knowing her role on the team. So, if your team is capturing a point, you could stand on the point with the rest of your team, but that's probably not going to be as helpful as if you run or blink over and start intercepting people running back from the other team's spawn. Tracer is fantastic at mobility. You need to be using that. So, if you can intercept some people, not even necessarily to kill them, but just to make them, to shoot at them, make them either take cover or make them chase you, that is way better time spent than if you're just standing on the point waiting to get ultimated with everyone else. So that's one of the things, just keep in your mind. You always need to be moving. You can always be doing something more effective than standing on a point, unless you've snuck behind the team and are the only one standing on the point. Beyond that, I think another thing that I picked up after some time is the importance of really sticking her ultimate pulse bomb to your targets instead of just throwing it into an area. You can blink right into other characters' hitboxes, and then, you hit the button and it's stuck to them because you're right there, and then you just recall out. So that's the most effective way to use it, even though it's not very easy to stick it at first. And the last thing, as far as a mentality, just prioritizing survival over kills. I think Tracer's presence is just as important as her damage output. Just making sure that the other team is constantly having to look around for you. The other team's snipers are going to be really uneasy, and they're going to feel really comfortable for about 30 seconds when they see Tracer die. So if it's a situation where you can get a kill, but they're going to take you with them, it's usually better for the team if Tracer just recalls or blinks out of there, finds a health pack, and goes about her business.
I absolutely agree, and I think it's actually really important that you brought that up, and I'm glad that you did. The presence of the character. Now, we can talk forever about the mechanics and, the damage output and all the different strategies you can, but the mind game potential in Overwatch is just amazing. If you are on a team and you look out there, out your scope with Widowmaker, or you're running around with Hanzo, and you see a specific character, you're immediately going to start planning your game based on who you see. So, like you said, seeing Tracer can completely change the dynamic of the game, because someone now knows, okay, I have someone who could literally get behind me in no time. What do I need to do to prepare? And you can use that to your advantage by really, using your intimidation factor and popping in, not necessarily even going for the kill, but really drawing their attention to you is a great way to use a character and really, turn the match towards your favor. So yeah, I completely agree with you. She's a great character, super mobile, super fun to use. She's, the star of Overwatch, the face of the brand, and I think Tracer is the way to go if that's the style you're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. She's one of my favorites. She's just really fun. One of the things about this game and this character specifically that I just keep coming back to is that it's really fun, and in some ways that are hard to put into words sometimes. It's hard to describe, but I think that they've really captured something here.
So that about wraps up Tracer as an in-depth character analysis. Definitely check us out later in the week for a more in-depth discussion on Genji and Reaper as well.
Yep, thanks for tuning in, guys. Be sure to check out our website, oppodcast.com. We're going to have more video content going up there, as well as a schedule for our upcoming live streams. And of course, our episodes will be up there, as well as on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play Music now.
Thank you all for listening, and you'll hear from us soon.